Happy 100,000 subscribers! Coming soon, bring home your own little Drake buddy in orb form. Stay tuned for when this little guy goes on sale. Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to the Den of the Drake. Other dragons hoard gold, while I hoard internet cringe. Ah, the Mary Sue, the only kind of character whose hatred by the audience is inversely related to the love they got from the writer's room. And that hatred gets amplified 100 times when it's in the context of an RPG. It's one thing to suffer through a Mary Sue on a screen, but it's another thing entirely when they're sitting across the table from you. For reference, a Mary Sue, or Gary Stew, because we value gender equality here at Den of the Drake, is a character so utterly lacking of flaws that the universe itself bends around their very existence. Maybe you'll get some fake flaws like naive or doesn't believe in themselves enough. But for the most part, that list of flaws is about as empty as the seats at an Ellen DeGeneres stand-up routine. Unfortunately, this kind of character is all too common thanks to the growing epidemic of narcissism that's infected our culture. Speaking of narcissists, if you're here because I put Ray in the thumbnail, I want you to know you fell for my trap. Last time I made a video about a Mary Sue, I put Ray in the thumbnail, and the weird side of Star Wars Reddit got really pissed at me without even watching the thing. So of course, as a red-blooded American, it's my duty to double down. Your downvotes mean nothing to me, peasants. I've seen what gets your likes. But because I'm in such a good mood, I feel like reading 2 stories for you today. Consider this a bit of an apology for my utterly ruined upload schedule. I've been away at war. Against myself and my own self-loathing, but that's besides the point. So how about we go ahead and get started with this RPG horror story double hitter. Our first story stars a player whose tolerance for Mary Sue's hits its breaking point after one of the other players reveals themselves to be unable to bring anything but a Mary Sue to the table. Yes, truly one of the worst torments you can experience as an RPG player is sharing a table with a serial Mary Sueist. Now, without any further delay, let's go ahead and dive right into the horrifying world of r/RPG horror stories. Enjoy. Story number 1 comes to us from Reddit user NoEfficiency8655 and is titled, I left my group over a repeat Mary Sue player. I've been playing D&D for a few years on and off, starting 5e back in 2015. My now fiance introduced me to a group that had a few friends of mine from high school that I used to play 4e with. I didn't know any better, so I thought it would be fun. The DM was new and a few players took advantage of that, but he improved for the homebrew campaign that he made after. A steampunk fantasy game where we were playing as members of a research team. There, we still had some kinks to work out. We all had 3 level 20 NPCs on the crew, but the game was fun and the combat was fluid. The problem was 2 players that I'll be calling Moth and Skull. Skull was a homebrew, get used to seeing that, skeleton rogue fighter. That was basically a variant human with the undead template. He would stealth away from the party and come back later, always unharmed, to relay scouting intel, cheat on rolls for both character creation and in-game. We were on D&D Beyond with everyone able to see roll history, with the worst one being him rolling the same save 8 times and only mentioning the highest. His character was romancing moths, which became central to the plot. The much more problematic play was Moth, a homebrew half-dragon goddess. Yes, really. Artificer with connections to the crew via backstory that made her favored by every NPC. We'll call this one Dragon. Dragon had a flight speed, natural weapons, proficiency with a once-per-day sleep breath weapon with no save, and a few homebrew magical items that made her the only one who could effectively do research. Moth and the DM were personal friends, so she was able to get away with everything. Didn't want to make stats for her character? DM made it for her. Didn't want to roll? She could roleplay for nat 20s. Leaves mid-combat, all enemies ignore her. I almost lost my character after I left for the bathroom once, and she was always the solution to every major problem in the game. Dragon could sing beautifully and handle nearly every social interaction with a -2 to her charisma. Repair our ship, an artifact-level magic item at level 5, and had an entire chapter in-game specifically for her character. At one point, two other players, my fiancé and one of Moth's friends, started a lesbian relationship. Moth started spewing a bunch of homophobic nonsense. Her friend was an actual lesbian, by the way, and I think had a hand in punishing the party in-game by making the DM have the captain of the crew, one of the level 20 NPCs, leave the crew behind out of having a broken heart. He was dating neither one of those PCs, and now we had made it to a new ship. But we made it through the arc. Dragon fell in love with Skull's character, and they retired to live out their eternal lives. We can finally let someone else have a chapter. Wrong! Moth's next character was even worse. A homebrew race and subclass. A siren bard of the Deep Sea College. We had 4 bards at the time, including myself as one of the original 2 in the game. We'll call this one Siren. Siren could cast spells, ignoring material and some somatic components by singing alone. She could still use these components if needed, so silence wasn't a counter. Had a swim speed, water breathing, and the ability to substitute consumed components for ones of equal value. She would go diving for pearls every time she needed diamond dust. She was trying to seduce a different PC, but got bored playing a support character after about 4 sessions, and had a big tearful send-off after being discovered that Siren was a princess, whose kingdom needed her. Whatever, someone else can have a turn now, right? Wrong again! Moth's next character was a halfling warlock with a homebrew subclass called a hex gun. It is exactly what you think it is. Who could summon her patron at will. A level 20 homebrew demigod patron without even burning a spell slot. We'll call this character Hex, and yes, she started to try and seduce another PC. Hex was violent. She tried to shoot my character once, then complained when I casted Hold Person on her. She couldn't take no for an answer, and could use all Hexblade features and evocations on her gun. But the DM wised up on this one. He made summoning her patron take a full action, requiring a nat 20. Still OP, but much more fair. The other player, whose character she was trying to seduce, was also much more okay with keeping it in out-of-session roleplay, meaning she took less screen time. Things finally started being more about the party and less about her. Finally, we could move on. No new character this time. This time, we had an actual tragedy happen. Moth's grandfather died, and she said she needed to leave the game. My thoughts went out to her, as even after all the crap she pulled, I still felt terrible for her. Everyone in the group brought flowers for the grandpa's funeral, trying to give as much support as we could. She said she didn't have the heart to keep playing for now, so the DM closed the campaign early. I didn't get to do much in-game, but still had fun with out-of-session RP. Each player character got a text channel on the Discord server, and if you wanted to roleplay with someone, you just typed in their tab. The DM announced a new game that he was working on that we could start the next week. This was great for everyone, no negative feelings, and Moth had time to mourn. A new slate that she could join in whenever. Nope, she was already there, as cheery as ever. Already had Skull make her a character for the game and everything. I was naturally confused and a bit annoyed. Many of us were. We found out later that she was just bored of the setting and had talked the DM into ending the game. Her grandfather really did pass away, and although I have no real evidence, it seemed like she used that to guilt the DM into starting something new. I shrugged it off, looking to the Discord server to back up all the old roleplay, but she had already deleted the channel. Over a year of roleplay gone, as she only backed up her roleplay. I went from annoyed to furious, telling the DM about my issues and finally leaving the game. Since I'm sure there will be the usual questions I see on here, I did communicate with her and the DM. This usually ended in a vague announcement to the server, hinting at problems that were supposed to be private. I was typically quiet in games. I only talked when asked or there was a long period of silence. Only one other person was using a homebrew, a College of Orchestra bard / not me, to a far lesser extent. Yes, I was one of 2 PCs not in a romantic relationship. Almost all of my characters are asexual. My PC didn't outright hate any of Moth's. My PC was curious about Dragon, didn't have time to care about Siren, and avoided Hex after being shot at. The only character who had a major impact on the story was one of the original bards, and only once. All the others were just Moth's PC or because of Moth's PC. End of story. Bro, what the hell? Imagine having a GM give you special treatment, allow you to cheat seemingly at will, and shut down the whole campaign at the drop of a hat because you were bored. Was Moth giving this guy the old rub and tug under the table every session or what? Nothing drains the energy from a D&D game faster than one player getting special treatment over all the other ones. Because what's the point in getting invested in a story if you're just gonna get ignored anyway? As a DM, the best way to avoid having Mary Sues in the party is to be present for character creation. Yeah, I know it's tempting to just say, "Aight, go nuts, see you at session 1. Don't backseat the players, but also point out cool little things that could help the characters be more involved in your world. And definitely emphasize that character flaws are not optional. Session 0 tends to act as a sort of character creation party in my games. And so far, I've never had anyone complain about it, and if they did complain about their character being criticized, well, why would I want to play with someone like that anyway? Now, as a player, the best piece of advice to avoid accidentally creating a Mary Sue is to go into character creation with the mentality of, I'm gonna make the best damn side character the world's ever seen. But Drake, I hear you cry. Why would I create a side character if I don't want the story to ignore me? Well, let me explain, dear listener. Your goal in D&D isn't to create a centerpiece. You are creating one piece of a pie that is made up of anywhere between 2 to 7 other pieces. So think, what are 5 or so things about my character that make them weak, and that other members of the party could help me with? 1, it gives an excuse for you to grow alongside other party members, which is always a good thing, and 2, it gives other players the opportunity to shine in areas where you know your character is weak. I've always said that RPGs are games where you tell a story starring a handful of characters, but only one protagonist, which is, you guessed it, the party. Here's a nifty little limerick for you to remember next time you're making a character. To avoid your game's sad demise, don't make Frodo bring me Samwise. But if you bring a Ray, with certainty I'll say your wife likely bangs other guys. Oh, maybe I am a bard. Story number 2 comes to us from Reddit user College D&D Fan. It is titled, Hands Are Thrown Over a Dice Game. So I play D&D in an RPG club at my local game store near the college. Our group would go together on Wednesdays after our classes were done to play our campaign. This campaign included me, the DM, a pacifist, a normal guy, a normal girl, a freshman girl who was just getting into D&D, and her boyfriend, a 30-something-year-old grognard. Most of us went to the said college except for Grognard and the DM. Now, Grognard was a hyper-min-maxed human fighter and was kinda smug about it, everyone else's character. Except his girlfriend's sexy and badass tiefling druid, and would jab us playfully about how weak our characters were. This wasn't as big a problem as you'd think, as we'd roast his character too. But he would also constantly give tips to the DM about how he could improve the campaign by, for example, giving us more freedom to explore the dungeons and the overworld. Grognard was big on exploration and dungeon crawling, and DM was, in all fairness, kinda railroady. This led to quite a few passive-aggressive arguments between DM and Grognard. DM took an insane amount of pride in his world and took it super seriously. To him, Grognard's tips were not appreciated, and Grognard didn't seem to get that. Things came to a head after a major argument about how Grognard felt that we were being forced to go to the Nine Hells by a transporter demon that abducted us when he, and the group, wanted to explore the Shadowfell for a magic sword. DM insisted that in his world, the Shadowfell and the Nine Hells were intimately connected. Grognard didn't buy that this wasn't pulled out of DM's ass, because we didn't roll any saves for it. After the argument escalated and escalated, DM started cussing out Grognard and then immediately killed his character off by having a demon eat him. No death saves or anything. Grognard stormed out. The next session, Grognard came back. He told the party that while he was still pissed at the DM, his girlfriend wanted him to stay, and kinda highlighted some of the ways that he had been being a dick himself. Grognard rolled up an elf druid. He was still min-maxed as hell, but he did do better about making his character feel more alive in terms of roleplay and backstory. He laid off on giving DM tips for the next few months until the DM introduced his DMPC, a demon blood hunter from the Shadowfell who hunted other demons and devils. This DMPC was bad. I'm not gonna mince words. He was a quintessential combination of Mary Sue, main character syndrome, and the DM's barely disguised fetish. So now our characters were basically side characters in his simulated novel, and this DMPC was sometimes hostile to the party. This came to a head when the pacifist of our group, a hobbit barbarian, questioned his increasingly cruel methods in regards to a demon prisoner who claimed to be a defector. The DMPC then angrily accused Hobbit of being in league with the forces of hell, but the Hobbit wouldn't budge and demanded that the DMPC stop torturing the demon or he would release him. DMPC then attacked the Hobbit. The party intervened to save him. He made up all kinds of BS excuses as to why we couldn't land a hit on him. My Kenku Warlock literally fell through the ground. No checks, no saves. DMPC ultimately killed the Hobbit Barbarian. Grognard rolled his eyes and muttered something before the DM got insanely pissed and said, "What?" He stood up and said, "You got more advice on how I should run my campaign?" Grognard just said,
"All I said was this DMPC is something else."
DM then said,
"You got something to say about the DMPC that I put hours of work into for your sake, do you?"
Grognard then said,
"Oh, come on! If you're gonna do this, don't go off like he exists for our sake. Your DMPC is there for you, and we all know it."
The DM replied,
"You know what? F you! Rocks fall, smash your goddamn elf's brains in, and as your soul leaves your body, a demon eats it."
Grognard then got up and said,
"You know what? If you want to railroad us through your power fantasy, why not just write a shitty novel?"
The DM then punched Grognard in the eye. He fell back and Grognard then punched back, and before we could blink, they had, rolled initiative in the middle of the game store. Grognard's girlfriend tried to intervene, and DM just kinda pushed her aside, which sent Grognard into a barbarian rage until he beat the DM to a bloody pulp as the store owner was calling the cops. The rest of us intervened before Grognard made him start rolling death saves. The police came and took DM and Grognard down to the station, but ultimately Grognard didn't press charges. He said,
"Sometimes men fight."
He did get a bit cocky about winning the fight afterwards, but regardless, we ended up taking a break from D&D until a few months later when I took up the DM mantle. It's still ongoing, in fact, it's a fairly new campaign, but is so far going well. We never saw the last DM again though, as while Grognard did let him off the hook in terms of charges, he did file a restraining order and was obviously banned from the game store. TLDR. A DM and a player argue over the DM's decisions. It escalates after he made an unpopular DMPC and physically assaulted a player for criticizing him. End of story. Damn, who gave M. Night Shyamalan a Reddit account? Because what a twist! I figured it was gonna end up with a Grognard throwing hands, but I didn't expect to end with him being a full-on anti-hero. I've always been a big proponent of the old bring back being afraid of being punched in the mouth philosophy, so I can't even fault the guy for his actions since my dude was given an excuse to throw hands and take the DM to Pound Town, and he took it. Yup, this was a satisfying one, no doubt. Get it, old man. Yeah, I know that the story said he was in his 30s, but anyone who's called a Grognard in my brain is like 94. Regardless, how funny is it that the default excuse for having an overbearing DMPC is to always say, "But I did it for the players." No, you didn't. Unless the players explicitly ask an NPC to come along, or you talked about party balance before the session or whatever, I can almost guarantee that the DMPC you got going isn't really adding anything to the experience. At best, they're just kinda there, and at worst, they're annoying the hell out of everybody. From my experience, the best place for your super cool edgy OC isn't as a party member, but as a quest giver instead. You can drip feed cool parts of the character's story in a way that the players want to find out more about this mysterious guy. Or they don't give a rat's ass. At the end of the day, player choice overrules almost all of your desires as a DM. You can't force your players to explore a character that they don't have an interest in exploring, no matter how much depth you put into them. The amount of times I've practically had to abandon characters entirely because my party just didn't give a shit is more than I can even remember. But on the flip side, the amount of completely inconsequential NPCs I've been practically forced to give copious amounts of depth to is an equally high number. What I'm saying is that you shouldn't get too married to any particular character because it denies both you and the party the chance to have little figments of your imaginations grow organically. And that's pretty cool if you ask me. But you know what else is pretty cool? Fan art! That's right, how about we take a look at this week's Gallery of the Drake? This week's fan art comes from viewer Lady Hensa, who depicts the Drake before the incident. God, I was so cute and innocent back then. What the hell happened?
What? A website with forums that cover almost every topic? Well, okay, Reddit, let's see what you're about.
Oh, no, you don't. The good ending. Thank you again, Lady Hensa, for submitting your art. If you'd like to see your fan art featured in Gallery of the Drake, be sure to upload it to the official Den of the Drake subreddit, linked in the description. Fan art is my favorite part of doing YouTube, and it means the world to me that I can inspire artists like you to create artwork like this. With the stories over and artwork displayed, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and send in your fan art. And if you feel like supporting the channel further, my Patreon and merchandise links are in the description. I would like to thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you next time in the Den of the Drake.